Okay, let's open my voice. Okay. Cut it. Okay. I'm here today reviewing the Beach Boys' Friends album, the third album in their so-called lo-fi trilogy. This one was released in June of 1968. It's in some ways it has a lot of similarities to the albums that came before it, but in a lot of ways it's very different from Wild Honey and Smiley Smile. They took a nice long break between Wild Honey and the release of this one, about 6 months. Today it doesn't seem that long, but during that time it was pretty unusual for a group to have that long of a break between their albums, especially the Beach Boys, who were earlier in the 60s, they were putting out albums each 2-3 months. But a lot of things had changed, a lot of things happened during that time period. Not just in the world of the Beach Boys, but in the music world in general. This album exists in completely its own bubble, and because of that, it sold extremely poorly. It sold a little bit better in the UK and probably in some other European countries as well. This copy, I believe, is the original UK copy of it by EMI. It has 12 tracks, and most of those tracks are extremely short. Like, few of these tracks are about a minute long. The cover art of the album is very beautiful. I love it that they used an artist to design an original cover art for them for once. So, I just dig the idea of doing that, because the Beach Boys for a lot of times have just used some sort of stock footage images and, stuff like that. So I dig the idea that they went for an original cover art, and I like the colors of it, I like the whole mood of it, and I think it represents the music extremely well. And the back cover is, I believe, one of the greatest back covers the Beach Boys ever had. It has a beautiful sunset scenery by the beach. There's probably Pacific Ocean, I guess, and then there's a little note by Diane Rovell, Brian's then wife, Marilyn's sister. On behalf of the Beach Boys, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our many musician friends for taking part in making of this album. While the songwriting continues a similar path on this album than the albums that came before, the production is a little bit different. So they started to incorporate more session musicians on the Friends sessions, and they have a lot of string instruments and horns on this album, and that sets it a little bit apart from the albums that came before it. As I mentioned, a lot of things happened during this time. The Beach Boys did a tour with Mahesh Yogi, and that was a complete failure, not doing well in concerts. People didn't come to see them in the US. They were doing much more greatly in Europe for some reason. What was actually happening during this time was psychedelic music. Hard rock was kind of like early heavy metal was basically coming or rising, to the mainstream. So you had groups like Led Zeppelin coming out, and Jimi Hendrix was at the top. So the mainstream music was very much just anything but, the stuff that the Beach Boys were doing for 3 albums in a row, starting off with Smiley Smile, then continuing that path with Wild Honey, and then with Friends, which is the most soothing album of these 3. So it's like the complete opposite of what was actually happening in the mainstream. And that is one of the main reasons I love this album so much, because it is so unique, and the mood of it is just extremely relaxing. There's no tensions. The music it's not. A lot of times music like this might come out as a sort of pretentious elevator music, but this is not the case with Friends at all. The music is extremely beautiful, the melodies, you got the amazing Brian Wilson talent all over the record. Brian Wilson considers this album one of his, so to speak, solo albums, because he had so much effort on it. He's on pretty much on every track. He wrote most of it, and the lyrics, there's more collaborators here, but Mike wrote all of the lyrics, Al wrote some, and then there's 2 great songs by Dennis. So this is an, very important album in that case as well, because it marks this beginning of Dennis Wilson, the composer and, songwriter, the legendary Dennis Wilson, the songwriter. And his tracks over here are some of the best tracks on the album. It starts off with Meant for You, which is a great little, I think it's about 30-second long snippet of a song. It was originally longer, it had a lot more lyrics and stuff, but I think they did the right call to cut it shortly, because even though I like the full version as well, you can hear that on the session set that is released digitally. But anyhow, I dig that whole thing, but it works just this beautiful little intro to the album as it is over here, and it has probably one of the greatest Mike Love lead vocals you can ever hear. His voice is so soothing, and it just sets incredible atmosphere for the album. And then it's followed with the title track. It has a cool vibe. It's a very bouncy, happy track, but it's not really a rock and roll track. It has a really unique sound. I guess it's a waltz generally, but it's very unique. Instrumentation, the vocals. This is probably the Beach Boys at their, best vocally. Just objectively, I think this is probably them at the top, That's my opinion, but I just think they sound so freaking great together on this album. And I love it how Dennis is very prominent on it, because even though he wasn't the best singer in the group, I personally like his voice the most of all of them. So I really enjoy that finally we're, getting to the period where he starts to shine more and, has more vocal spots as well. But anyway, Friends, a great track. And then it's followed with Wake the World, which is a track by Brian and Al. And it's a very, I would even call an eerie track. It has different sections, and it's very Smile-esque in that sense. You could arrange it in very many different ways. It's a little song, I think it's like a minute and 50 seconds long, and yeah, I love it. It's just about a guy waking up to a new day and then going to bed, and the stars are coming up, and it's just a simple track vocally, very Brian-esque track. But yeah, I mean, one of my favorites on the album. What else can you really say about it? Great vocals, great catchy melody. Be Here, oh, the record is slipping from the sleeve. I guess I'm gonna take it off. So I don't. It's a little bit. It's broken a bit, And it's follow. Oh, we got over here the vintage sleeve as well. How cool is that? Yeah. Anyway, Wake the World is then followed with Be Here in the Morning, which is a great group effort. It's written by basically the whole group, and it also has a little vocal spot by Mary Wilson. So how cool is that? And I dig the little, it's not really, I guess it's not really technically a lead vocal, but it kind of is, that sort of chant part, not chant, but just this however that goes. But the part that Dennis sings, his voice is so soulful, and I love this track. It's an amazing track, and it's just about like being grateful that you got somebody that you care about, and stuff like that. It's very simple thematically and lyrically, but it just has a really cool vibe. Very unique song. Then it's followed with When a Man Needs a Woman, which has a bunch of different writers. It also has a few writers that are not part of the Beach Boys, but were friends and family, in the inner circle. But anyhow, that's basically Brian's song about the upcoming baby of theirs, with Marilyn. And it's a simple track, kind of like singing to singing to your child, but it's not creepy song. Like I guess I've read that some people find it a little bit creepy because of the of the part that they make things like "You My Son," or So yeah, I can guess, I can like understand why some people don't like the song lyrically, but I don't mind that. I think it's very pretty. I think it's very innocent, and I dig the way the lyrics are written. I think it's just a pretty, simple idea of a song, and musically it's very chill. I really dig it. And then side one ends with "Passing By," which is basically instrumental, but it does have this sort of a chanting thing going on, or this wordless hymn or whatever, But it's a very Pet Sounds-esque track. It would most definitely fit on Pet Sounds. It's very similar. Side 2 starts off with Annalie the Healer, and I dig the way the song starts off with first just vocally, and then the incredible, I guess they are bongos, kind of, kick in. But anyway, it was written by Mike and Brian. So Mike wrote the lyrics about this kind of like a healer person from, I guess, like India or something, I read somewhere that the healer actually was some sort of scam artist, but I guess that's what they usually are in real life. But I really like the song. I think the whole idea of it's just about this guy who like heard that there's some sort of healer, and then the guy is sort of just amazed by the fact that somebody can heal people with their hands. And it's just about it's not about whether it's true or not. It's just about that idea that somebody hears that something like this exists. And I like the idea of writing a song about it. I think it's a pretty, it's a groovy track, It's a little bit more it's not a rock and roll track, but it's a little bit more on the bouncy side. And I think it benefits the album quite well. Then it's followed with the first, but certainly not the worst track by Dennis Wilson ever, on a Beach Boys album, "Little Bird." And the lyrics for the song were written by Stephen Kalinich, a poet that was a friend of theirs around that time period, and still is, in the inner circle. A great guy, great lyricist throughout the decades. He's written great stuff for both Dennis and Brian, maybe for some of the other guys as well. But anyhow, I guess he's still on Instagram, so follow him. He's a great guy. He corrected me. I've chatted with him a few times. He corrected me actually once about the lyrics of this song, because I was borrowing there's no lyric sheet over here with the album. It probably didn't. There probably never was, but online in most of the sites that you see the lyrics for "Little Bird," they talk about a worm. Like how does that part go? Like, trout in a shiny brook gave a worm a loving look, and whatever, So it's not about a worm really, even though it says that on a lot of online sites. Stephen actually corrected me once because I was quoting those lyrics in a post, and he's told me that it's not about a worm. It's actually the trout gave a warm and loving look. No. Oh yeah. The way that it's written in a lot of online sites goes warm another look. Yeah, gave warm another look, but it's not like that. It goes warm and loving look. But it's easy to mishear that, I guess. But anyway, a great song. Brian helped a lot with that, and it should have been a hit. It's a classic track. Dennis's soulful vocals, his delivery. And then it's followed with another Dennis and Stephen collaboration, "Be Still." which has Brian playing like an organ, and that's it. Like there's just the organ part, and then there's Dennis's lead vocals, and it's basically just this little hymn, this little poem, sung soothingly, and it's just a minute and 24 seconds long, so it's a very short track, but it's very beautiful, excellent track. And could have been also a great opener for the album. Busy Doing Nothing, which is Brian Wilson's solo composition and lyrics. And it's one of the best lyrics that he ever wrote, with probably Till I Die and some other songs. But great lyrics. And this is probably like the most famous song on the album with the title track, because of the way it's sort of the ultimate Brian Wilson, mundane Brian Wilson track, because he used to write these sort of mundane songs with just your day-to-day life, just he started it off kind of with I guess with Wild Honey, and he had a few tracks over there like I'd Love Just Wants to See You, but Busy Doing Nothing is kind of like the ultimate that type of a song by Brian. I think it's the longest track on the album. No, okay. Diamond Head is a little bit longer, the next song, but yeah, it's the second longest, a little bit over 3 minutes long, and it has a bouncy sort of bossa nova feeling going in it, and great production, great lead vocals. There's even a fart sound in the song, which is weird, but it doesn't distract, even though you'd think it would, but listen closely, it is there. Remembers it, but there's no answer, so he writes a letter, and it's just like the most mundane thing. Like, how can you make a song about that? Like, if you'd go into a writer's course, like a songwriting course or something like that, the first thing that all the people or the teachers would say is, that's like, you cannot write about that. Don't write about that. Like, that's an awful lyric, and that there's no way that's gonna work and stuff like that. That's just the kind of story that people would say to you, that you cannot do that. But somehow just Brian makes it work, and it's sort of, I feel it's sort of the ironic, kind of like an ironic example of what Brian's genius, to me at least, is about. It's making those mundane things and sometimes kind of simple, either just simple things or things that sound simple or seem simple but actually are not. He sort of flips things over. He's able to do that. He can take a simple idea and then turn it into something great, like that usually would like even from a professional musician would take like months to write. He can do that in 5 minutes, or he can take an extremely complex idea and then just kind of flip it and make a simple song out of it. I think Busy Doing Nothing is a great example of that, because composition wise, it's not a simple track, but the lyrics and the whole thematic of it, the whole idea is very simple. Diamond Head is a very different track compared to the rest of them. It has a lot of session musicians. It sets this sort of Hawaiian mood. Great track. Kind of Pet Sounds-esque once again. In a similar way than you got the title track on Pet Sounds. It's sort of a similar thing over here. But it was written by Brian and the session guys, and I really love it. I think it would be a great closer for the album. But in the traditional Brian Wilson style, after that great soothing feeling that track leaves you with, we get the blasting, bombastic, transcendental meditation, which is under 2 minute long track, written mostly by Brian, but I guess it has some lyrics also by Mike and Al. But Brian was very into TM around this time. He was practicing it, met the Maharishi and with the guys and all that, and he was very much into it, and he wanted to write a song about it, so he was the first one to kind of do that here. And musically, I really like it. I think it's a creepy, eerie tune. You'd think that a song about meditation would be something soothing, especially on an album like this. But no, it's the complete opposite. It's like you got horns blasting, and it's just a crazy, crazy track. It rocks very hard. It's kind of like hard rock. I really dig the instrumental track on it, but I can't stand the repetitive transcendental meditation. It's way too preachy. I don't like that part. But overall, otherwise, I dig the song. I wish it was just this sort of oddball thing that, would be a B-side of a single or something, because it sort of destroys the the amazing ending, that whole vibe that you have after Diamond Head. It sort of just destroys that and leaves you with this sort of like hammer to the head feeling. It's not a bad track, just not one of my favorites, but it's the only track on the album that I even slightly dislike. So that makes actually this album my favorite of the whole. Like the highs of this album are just so high that it just completely shadows that that little section at the end with TM song, or the song Transcendental Meditation. They actually did a song called TM song later on, which is confusing. But anyhow, it just overshadows all of that, that little song at the end, the high highs, So this is my favorite album of the whole Beach Boys lo-fi trilogy. I remember so vividly when I heard this the first time, I had absolutely no sort of like thoughts about like what it should sound like. Is it gonna be good? Is it gonna be bad? Whatever. Like, I didn't think about anything about it, and I listened to it, and I fell in love with it immediately. And that's not always the case with the music that you hear. But Friends to me was just very easily digestible, and I didn't understand why it flopped so hard. And it's a sad thing that after this one they didn't really do much, like anything that is even remotely similar to the stuff here or the stuff that they did during the lo-fi period. There is a few tracks on the next album 2020 that has a similar vibe than some of the tracks on Friends, which the reason is mainly because they are sort of leftovers from the sessions. But I can understand the reasoning behind that, because these albums flopped so hard and they weren't even critically acclaimed that much, around that time period. So, you can't really blame them. They almost went bankrupt, They were losing income so fast, and people didn't come to the shows, people didn't buy the records, and they were lost. And yeah, so that meant that they had to look for a new sound and new direction, which they did find eventually for a short period of time at least. It's a legendary album. Like, Dennis looks so cool over there, and nobody knew around this time period how much great music he would then write during the next 10 years. The stuff that he would put out, record and release, and even all the stuff that he would just leave in the vaults, and the stuff that we've been able to hear during the last few years, the unreleased Dennis Wilson stuff. He was great. In my opinion, he was the second greatest composer, songwriter in the group after Brian, and his stuff is just so freaking unique and amazing. And his voice was one of the most soulful voices that I've ever heard of. What do you think about Friends? I know it's a little bit kind of controversial album today still, I think. Not everybody loves it as much as I do. But yeah, honestly, write a comment. What do you think about it? Were you a fan of it immediately, or did you hate it? I don't know. I'm tired. But that's it. Thanks for watching. See you soon, hopefully, on the 2020 review. I'm gonna do that next, but I'm not sure when. Up until that, take care. Bye bye.